They never told you the real rules, not your parents, not your teachers, not anyone who stood in front of a room and acted like they had the answers. Because the people who actually understand how power works don't write it in textbooks. They don't put it in motivational speeches. They keep it close, use it quietly, and let everyone else operate in the dark. Here's what I want you to understand before we go any further. There is a version of you that loses every single day, not because you're weak, not because you lack talent, not because the world is unfair, but because you are playing a game you were never taught the rules to. You show up with honesty while someone across the table is using information. You bring emotion while they bring strategy. You react while they respond. And every single time, without you fully understanding why, they walk away with more than you do. That ends today. 500 years ago, a man named Niccolo Machiavelli was stripped of everything, his position, his reputation, his freedom, and thrown into exile. Most men in that position collapse. Machiavelli wrote, "He sat down and produced the most dangerous, most honest, most secretly useful document about human nature and power that has ever existed. Leaders tried to ban it, the church condemned it, and kings, the very people who publicly denounced it, kept private copies within arm's reach. Why? Because it told the truth about the game, the actual game, not the version we're supposed to believe in. What follows are 9 principles pulled from that cold, unfiltered understanding, not philosophy, not motivation, operational frameworks, the kind that change how you read a room, how you handle a rival, how you build something that lasts, and how you become the kind of person that circumstances cannot easily destroy. Let's begin. Number 1. See what's actually there. The single most costly habit most people carry through life is this. They see people as they wish them to be, rather than as they are. Your business partner has bent the truth 3 separate times for his own convenience, and you've explained all 3 away, because the alternative, seeing him clearly, is uncomfortable. The person you trusted with your plans has quietly undercut you twice, and you've told yourself it was coincidence, because admitting the pattern requires you to act on it. This is not generosity. This is willful blindness with a price tag attached to it. Human beings are primarily driven by self-interest, not always, not in every moment, but in the moments that matter, the ones where something real is at stake. Self-interest is almost always the loudest voice in the room. This is not a moral judgment. It is an observation about how people actually function under pressure. The person who understands this is not cynical. They are accurate. Watch behavior, not language. Words are completely free. Anyone can tell you they're loyal, trustworthy, consistent. What they do when it actually costs them something, that is where character lives or dies. 1 incident can be an accident. 2 might be coincidence. 3 is a pattern. And a pattern is a person showing you who they are, with perfect clarity. Separate what you feel about someone from what the evidence shows you. You can like a person and still recognize they cannot be trusted with certain things. Your affection for them is not evidence of their reliability. It is evidence of your preference. There is a significant difference between those 2 things, and confusing them is expensive. The cold eye is not about expecting the worst. It is about seeing what is actually there, accurately, without distortion, and making decisions from reality rather than from the version of it you prefer. And now number 2 is, the pause is where your power lives. Every day, someone is going to try to pull a reaction out of you. A deliberate comment in a group setting, a challenge designed to destabilize you publicly, a move calibrated to make you respond immediately and badly. And the moment you react, you've handed them exactly what they came for. The person who can make you move controls you. Once someone knows which button produces which reaction, they own your behavior without any real effort. The pause, the space between what happens to you and what you consciously choose to do about it, is not hesitation. It is power. It is the demonstration that you cannot be easily operated. When someone challenges you publicly and you fire back immediately, everyone in the room sees that they can shake you. When you respond with deliberate calm, with a slowness that communicates complete certainty, you show something different entirely. You show that you are choosing your response, that it is selected, not triggered. This principle extends beyond confrontation. In negotiation, urgency almost always belongs to the side that concedes. Let silence sit in the room. Let the other person fill it. In competition, revealing your full hand out of excitement is how people lose advantages they spent months building. In leadership, the person who reacts to every turbulence creates anxiety in everyone around them. The person who moves with deliberate calm creates a different kind of atmosphere entirely. Train the pause until it becomes instinctive. Ask 2 questions before you respond to anything significant. What outcome do I actually want here? And what response makes that outcome most likely? The answer will almost never involve the first thing your emotions suggested. 3. Know more than they think you know. Knowledge is not power. That phrase sounds correct, and it isn't. Knowledge that your opponent doesn't know you possess, that is power. There is a world of difference between the two. The person who demonstrates everything they know at every opportunity is completely transparent. Transparent people are readable. Readable people are predictable. Predictable people are easily outmaneuvered. The person who asks more than they speak, who listens more than they declare, who holds information carefully and releases it with precision, that person operates with sustained leverage that the other side cannot calculate. Ask questions instead of making statements. The person talking constantly is revealing their priorities, anxieties, and limits in every sentence. The person asking thoughtful, precise questions is learning the same things about the other side while giving away almost nothing in return. In every exchange, the listener walks away richer in information than the talker. When you enter a new environment, resist the pressure to establish yourself quickly. Watch first. Learn where the real influence actually sits, which is almost never where the formal structure suggests. Understand who shapes outcomes versus who simply holds a title. Then when you engage, you're working from a complete map that nobody else in the room possesses, and protect what's yours. Not everything needs to be shared. Not every person in your life deserves access to your plans, your vulnerabilities, your next moves. The person who gives equal access to everyone arms everyone equally against themselves. No more. Show less. Always. If this is already changing how you think, hit like and subscribe, because what comes next is where most people's entire strategy falls apart. Excellence every day, especially the days no one is watching, is number 4. There are 2 types of predictability. One makes you controllable. The other makes you formidable. When people can predict exactly how to provoke you, you are controllable. When people know that whatever you commit to, you deliver, without exception, without excuses, without erosion under pressure, you have built something that money cannot replicate. A reputation so consistent, it precedes you. The most underrated discipline in the world is consistency. The person who works hard when motivated and disappears when they don't feel like it will never build anything that lasts. Motivation is weather dependent. Discipline is not. The people who build things worth having are almost never the most talented people in the room. They are the most consistent. Decide your non-negotiables. The standards you hold when nobody is watching, when things are difficult, when the temptation to let it slide is loudest. Those non-negotiables become your actual identity, not the identity you claim, but the one you construct through repeated action across ordinary days. There is a hidden power inside this. When you are consistently excellent in everything visible, a single deliberate deviation from that pattern becomes disproportionately powerful. The person who is always calm delivers one moment of cold certainty that stops a room. The person who consistently delivers makes one bold move that permanently reframes what everyone believes they are capable of. Consistency creates contrast. Contrast is where real impact lives. Now number 5, trust is a resource, spend it like one. Most people don't have a trust problem because they trust too little. They have won because they trust indiscriminately, giving equal access and equal vulnerability to people who have provided completely different levels of evidence they deserve any of it. Think of trust as finite and genuinely valuable. Spread it broadly without discrimination, and it becomes meaningless everywhere you've placed it. Concentrate it precisely in people who have demonstrated through real behavior, under real pressure, in real situations where they had the option to choose differently and chose to stay. Those people become the foundation of everything worth building. There are people you work with, functional connections, valuable within their scope. They don't receive access to your actual vulnerabilities or long-term thinking. There are people you know, genuine history, warmth, shared experience. But history is not loyalty. The test of loyalty is cost. Did they stand when standing was difficult? There are people who have passed that test, repeatedly, over time. Those are rare. Those deserve your full investment. The other half of this equation is internal. The standard you hold for yourself. Keep the promises you make to yourself. Maintain your own word as something sacred, not because someone external will verify it, but because the person who cannot trust himself cannot build anything trustworthy outward from there. Most people respond to circumstances after those circumstances have already fully formed around them. A smaller, more effective group positions themselves to shape what's coming before it arrives. Positioning is the discipline of placing your reputation, your capabilities, your relationships, and your resources in the right configuration before the opportunity appears, or before the crisis lands. From the outside, it looks like luck. It isn't. Luck is just preparation, meeting a moment that observers didn't see coming. The person who begins building position only after they realize they need it is already behind. The skills, the network, the reputation, these need to exist before they're required, not as a response to urgency. The person who defines their values and limits clearly in a calm moment will honor them under pressure. The person who tries to figure out their values in real time, while something is actively hitting them, loses the game before they realize they were playing one. Every day there is a positioning move available to you, not dramatic gestures, small, directional, precise actions that accumulate into an advantageous location that nobody else thought to occupy early. Find that move, execute it. Know which ground is worth holding is number 7 on list. Holding a position costs resources. Every proud man needs to hear this at some point. There are moments when the most powerful move available to you is a deliberate step backward, not surrender. Strategic retreat, yielding specific ground in order to preserve the strength needed for the engagement that actually determines the outcome. The commanders who achieved the most decisive, most enduring victories throughout history were almost never the ones who met every challenge with maximum force. They were the ones cold enough to know which engagements to fight and which to let pass. The commander who responds to every provocation with full fury exhausts his resources on small conflicts that decide nothing. He wins individual battles and loses the larger war through accumulated depletion. Holding a position costs resources. Every resource spent holding ground that doesn't matter is a resource unavailable for ground that does. The ability to recognize that distinction and to act on it without letting ego interfere is one of the rarest and most powerful disciplines available to a person. The trap is pride. Pride insists every position must be held because stepping back feels like diminishment. Strategy asks only one question. Does holding this position at this moment serve the outcome I'm actually building toward? When the honest answer is no, stepping back is not weakness. It is intelligence operating correctly. Hit like and subscribe and move on to number 8. That is, the long game is the only game. 8. The long game is the only game. Most people make decisions based on what feels best right now. That one habit, repeated daily, quietly builds a smaller and smaller life, until one day the gap between where you are and where you could have been is impossible to ignore. Stop optimizing for today's comfort. Start asking what the position you're building actually requires from you right now, and pay that price without complaint. This year's hardest challenge is next year's sharpest edge. Today's patience is tomorrow's decisive advantage. Let people underestimate you early. Exceed every expectation when it's the only moment that counts. Small choices, invisible moments, nobody watching. That is exactly where the gap is built. Pay now, win later, no exceptions. Number 9 is build an identity the world cannot shake. Everything before this built one thing, a version of you that circumstances cannot destroy. Most people's confidence collapses the moment conditions turn against them. That is exactly when quality decisions matter most, and exactly when they fall apart. Build your stability from the inside, your standards, your word to yourself, your discipline on the days nobody is watching and nothing is forcing you. Do that long enough, and you become genuinely difficult to stop. 9 principles, 1 direction, see people as they are, not as you prefer them to be. Respond deliberately, never from the first impulse. Know more than you show, and listen more than you speak. Build excellence into your ordinary days until it becomes your reputation. Spend trust precisely, and earn it from yourself first. Position before you need to. Know which ground is worth holding, and which is not. Trade comfort today for position tomorrow, and build an identity strong enough to stand independent of whatever the world throws at it. These are not ideas for someday. They are operational starting today, in the next conversation you have, the next decision you face, the next moment someone tries to pull a reaction out of you. The world will test your commitment to this almost immediately. An old pattern will offer itself as the more comfortable path. Something will make the reactive response feel more satisfying than the deliberate one. That is the test. That is where the gap between the person you were and the person you're becoming either widens or closes. Hold the line. Stay clear-eyed enough to see what's actually there. Stay deliberate enough that your actions are chosen, not triggered. Stay positioned far enough ahead that when the moment arrives, you're already where you need to be. Nothing about this is easy. Nothing about this was supposed to be. But the person who commits to this way of operating, day by day, choice by choice, discipline by discipline, builds something that compounds, quietly, steadily, into something that people who chose comfort will eventually find genuinely difficult to explain. Go build it. If you made it this far, you're already thinking differently than most. Subscribe, because the next video goes even deeper into what separates the people who build empires from the people who just watch them.